Here we go. There you go. Put your butt over there. There you go. Now lay down. Lay down. Lay down. All the way down. Chill out. Thank you. Alrighty. Hello. Let's see. Kind of wait and see here for just a minute. Give people a minute to come in. Hello. So I'm using my good lighting, my lamp, so that it doesn't look like crap on film. Let's see. Yeah, probably not gonna wear glasses again. It's hard to wear my glasses while I film because it always glares off my glasses. But yeah, I figured I would do a live just because it would be easier for me to just talk about it and then answer any questions. Hello. Come here if you want. Lay down. He's going to go to the end of the bed, aren't you? He's going to go lay down. Open the door then. If you want out, go out. Or come back up here. What are you doing? He doesn't know what he's doing. Come here. Come on. Jump up here. Come on. Make up your mind. There we go. Roll over, big baby. So, he's hanging out. So basically, I just kind of wanted to do the gist of how to get a service dog, or if you can get a service dog, should probably be a better a better thing to say. Denali, what are you doing? I wish you guys could see his face right now because it's ridiculous. What are you doing? Come here. Come here. You big baby. So basically, first off, getting a service dog is usually I don't want to say the very last option, because it's not always the very last option, but it's definitely something that is not going to be the first, even the second, or honestly sometimes even the third choice. They're kind of a alternative method of treatment for disorders and things like that after things simply just don't work. So I got Denali when I was basically told that I was always told that by the time I was in my 20s, I was going to be using a wheelchair. I was always told that. But it wasn't until a little later on, after I started having serious falls and was living alone, that it kind of came into the topic of getting a service dog. And yeah, I discussed it with my doctor, and he agreed that, if things did work out, hey, come up here and lay down. If you keep pacing, dude. Come on. I know you want your spot. Get up here. Or lay on your blankie. Make your choice. But I discussed it with my doctor and basically kind of just asked about what he thought about it. And he agreed that if things did work out, that it would be beneficial. So I kind of, at that point, I already had Denali. It had always kind of been a topic of discussion when I was diagnosed. So it had always been in the cards after diagnosis. But it didn't become serious until I moved out and I was separated from my family and things like that it really became evident that I was going to need to use a service dog. So basically, first things first, you need to have it suggested and your doctor agree that a service dog would be beneficial. And you need to legally have a disability. Anxiety and depression in and of themselves are not disabilities. They can be debilitating, but under law, you have to have a depression or anxiety disorder in order to be disabled. You can't just have anxiety and depression in and of themselves. Hello. So basically, talk to your doctor first, because there's no point in going through with any of the other steps if your doctor doesn't agree and if it's not gonna work. There's no reason to even follow through with the other steps if your doctor doesn't, think that it would be necessary. That's not saying, because I know getting doctors to approve something can be really hard. I completely understand. I was blown off and told that I was fat, lazy, and depressed for years until I was diagnosed. So I get it. If you want a second opinion, I would suggest going to another doctor, or going to a specialist and talking to them. So I understand that, but you need to have a genuine diagnosis and a genuine disability in order to have a service dog. So that's number one. Second off, most people are like, well, I want to make my dog a service dog. For the most part, you're not going to be able to. For the most part. Denali's down there playing with his toy. But for the most part, you aren't going to be able to make your dog a service dog. Unless it is very, very young puppy or a very young dog, and they just also happen to have what it takes in the temperament to become a service dog, then okay, maybe you can make your dog a service dog. But rule of thumb being, in all likelihood, your dog that you have now is not going to be a good idea for a service dog, especially if they're over 2. He's playing with his toy and he does not want to come up here. He was up here earlier in the video wallowing, but basically what I suggest personally, if you don't want to go through a reputable breeder, my suggestion is off the bat, find a reputable breeder. Choose a breed, find a good breeder, pick out a good candidate puppy, and start from scratch. That's going to give you the best options. You can do more with a puppy. You can shape a puppy. You can form kind of how that puppy grows up and how they behave. However, it is not impossible, definitely not impossible, to get a adopted dog, a dog from a humane society or a shelter, to be able to do service work. But I do suggest personally, in the things that I've experienced and trained with, and even things that my trainer has brought up, after you get over a year, it's going to get harder and harder the older they get. I'd say cut off bare minimum, you want a puppy. Top age-wise, I would say cut off is like 2. Yes, Daisy's adopted. Denali I had since he was about 10 to 12 weeks old. But yeah, I do suggest starting from scratch, whether it be from a breeder or you can adopt a puppy from a shelter. I do suggest getting a younger dog. Honestly, the golden age, personally, is usually 3 to 4 months old, is like the best time to do a little bit more structured training. You can do socialization stuff and starting to understand things when they're younger, but really that 3-4 month old period is when they start to actually have like an attention span to focus and do things. So that's kind of like the golden area of them learning things, beginning to learn things at least. So once you got your doctor's approval, say you got a good prospect puppy. So the next step is going to be the training. A service dog. So I just had a complete loss of train of thought. It's one of those days. I worked all day today, so my brain's not quite all there. Got a letter, got a prospect. The next would be focusing on training. So you have a couple different options. If you skipped the finding a puppy stage, you can go directly to looking at companies. I have worked closely with several different companies. I've had personal experiences with multiple different companies. CCI, Four Paws for Ability, Paws for Hope, and the Buckeye Canine, Buckeye Service Dogs are all companies that are here locally around me in Ohio that I've worked with and been around and had experiences with. Pilot Dogs is another company that is here in Columbus. I haven't had very good interactions with Pilot Dogs. I haven't had not that, it's just they undertrain their dogs and they place dogs that really shouldn't be placed yet. And they're not a bad company, but I don't think that they have as good turnout as they should. So Pilot Dogs is another option, but you need to take that take it with a grain of salt and understand that, they don't have, 100% satisfactory, things going on with them. So just keep that in mind. But you have the option of going through a company and being placed with a fully trained dog, which can take upwards of 2 years for you to receive a dog. And it is very expensive. Most of them begin at $10,000. You put down I think it's $300 or $500 deposit to hold your place, and then you work through getting grants, seeing if insurance would help you, a payment plan, and you can do fundraisers. That's not saying, bye, Chloe. That's not saying that, every company is going to do that, but that's for the most part what companies offer, payment-wise. And most company dogs, bare minimum, about $10,000, but they can go upwards of, my trainer's dog was $5,600. So it can get very, very, very expensive very fast. So keep that in mind, that it's not always an option. Another option would be to go through and put them through classes. So you would go to a training facility that trains service dogs or a company that trains service dogs. And instead of them placing you with a fully trained dog, you would be taking their courses to train your dog, the dog that you chose or the dog that they also can help you pick. I know that some companies can do that. So that's the other option, is working through a company to help train. Now, Denali was trained by me. He was trained by me, but I went to professional classes for basic obedience training. He completed all of his basic obedience training. Thank you. Hello, baby. He brought him his fluffy shark, and the cat is in the... Why, guys? Oh, hello. Get out of here, guys. Hello, everyone. Like, Binks, quit being a butthole. Go get your toy. Jeez. Okay. So, Denali was trained obedience-wise, professionally. I went through Binks. Thank you. I went through courses, and they basically told me what to do, and I worked with Denali with that. So I wasn't completely alone in the training. It was kind of like a guided training. You do all the work, they just tell you what to do, which was really beneficial, really helpful, and that's what I really suggest. That's what I liked. That's what I probably will continue to do for the rest of my life with my service dogs, is to complete training in a structured setting. So that's how Denali was trained, which Denali is about, I'm not going to lie to anybody, Denali is about a $20,000 dog at this point. Honestly, it's probably more than that at this point. From, getting him training, getting him cleared for mobility and all that stuff. It's probably getting close to about $30,000. It just kind of depends about, situation wise, can you handle a dog? Financially, can you handle a dog? Can you afford to feed them high quality food? Take them to the vet to be cleared? If they get sick, are you going to be able to take care of them? Those kinds of things. And also, depending on if you're getting it for psychiatric work, you're going to get harassed. You're going to have people touching your dog. You're going to have people driving you nuts. You're going to be followed. You're going to have pictures taken of you. You're going to have people talk about you. You're going to have people bark at you. Excuse me. You're going to have that, whether you like it or not. And if that's going to trigger you, if that's going to make things worse, do not, under any circumstance, get a service dog. It is not for people who can't handle it. It's not. If you can't handle your temper, if you can't handle your emotions, and you're going to take it out on the dog, do not get a service dog. If you lose your temper and you go off on your dog, that is a problem. So if that applies, do not get a service dog, especially a service dog that you have to train, because it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of energy. And if you snap on your dog can wash, and it's your fault. That's just plain and simple, as blunt as I can be about, whether or not psych-wise, people who have psych issues to be able to handle a service dog. It's different for other medical issues if it's not psych. Same thing, can't handle any of the weird crap that happens with service dogs. Don't get a service dog, regardless if it's for psych work, but especially if it's for psych work, because it can make psych issues even worse. And the other option is to do full owner training. So other than guided training, like what I did, the other option is to do full owner training. Now, this is going to be a huge disclaimer. I did owner training for Denali's task work. His task work and shaping how he tasks, I did. His behavioral training was professionally done to make sure that he was cleared and structured and safe enough to work in that kind of setting. Okay? So, if you're going to, owner training is not easy. It's not. Especially if you don't have experience training dogs. If you have never had any experience, that is not an option for you. Unless you're ready to, study And when I say study, I mean spend hours and hours watching videos and reading books and buying books and going to the movies, going to, YouTube and looking at the videos and things of being able to train your own dog. I don't suggest doing owner training if you're not prepared to do that. If you're not prepared to, you know, handle those kinds of things. Same thing if you have temperamental issues, I do not suggest owner training. It is not a good option. It's not in the cards for you. Especially if you have meltdowns or you lose your temper. Where are you going? I don't want your nasty baby. This thing is so gross. It's wet and damp, and you can see where he's chewed and bitten holes in him. Come here. Get your nasty baby away from me. But owner training is kind of the, I don't want to say the last option because it's not, but it's one of those things that, like, if you really can't do the other stuff, then it can be an option. But you need to take into consideration the burden it puts in time and finances. Yes. So when I say having meltdowns, I'm talking about being so angry that you would hurt the dog, or anything that would put the dog in danger during a meltdown. Those kinds of things is what I'm talking about. If you have meltdowns, do not get a service dog. If you're having meltdowns of, self-harming tendencies, so if you're self-harming and you need the dog to stop you from self-harming, okay, fine. If you're having meltdowns and you're, doing the sobbing, disassociating, not knowing where you are, okay. If you disassociate and you don't know where you are, or you become completely unresponsive, okay. None of those things affect the dog. None of those things can put the dog in direct danger of you because of you, if that makes sense. Whereas if you're having meltdowns and you get mad and you throw things and you hit things and, you become violent, a service dog is not for you. I have meltdowns where I get angry. I get very angry. But my anger is towards myself. I get angry at myself. Never, ever at him. Ever. Yeah. As I said in another video, the only time I've ever lost my temper with Denali was in the beginning of training. I accidentally prong checked him and I corrected him too hard and I felt awful. And I stopped using a prong collar. It hurt me emotionally so much I stopped using a prong collar. At least for the next 7 to 8 months. I didn't even take it out at all. I didn't put one on him. And the other time was he was doing a tooth cleaning. I was scrubbing his teeth and doing his teeth, and he freaked out. And I got mad because he hurt me. He scratched me really hard, and I pinned him. And that was the only time that I ever lost my temper like that. Those kinds of things. Should it have happened? No, but it's not beating your dog, throwing your dog, hurting your dog, choking your dog. All of those things, if that would ever happen, one, don't have a dog in general, but definitely don't have a service dog and try to be training. It's not going to work. So owner training is that weird blurred line where, yes, anyone can owner train, but some people shouldn't. I'm a very firm believer in, anybody disabled can do the service dog stuff if it applies to them. But there are just some people that shouldn't. I know that that might be kind of confusing, but you get the gist. So basically, once you choose from the training wise of what you think is going to work, whether it be through a company, doing owner training, doing guided training, you know, choosing from those, that's when you go through that process, and that's how you get the dog trained for you. Now, getting a company dog, you get a fully trained dog. You're great, fine. Guided training is a little bit more difficult. You have to go through the courses. You have to take the time to do the courses and complete training. And at the end of that, great, your dog's fully trained. Fully trained. They never stop training. You continue to train, you continue to work, you continue to teach them new things, especially as disabilities evolve. So it never really stops. But that's kind of how the guided training is. And then owner training is one of the trainings that genuinely never stop. Pretty much every owner trained dog, which is most of the dogs that I've been around, which is nothing bad about owner training. It's just they aren't as sculpted as, dogs that were professionally trained. They need a little bit more encouragement. They need a little bit more structure and working. They need to be worked more on keeping all those skills up to date. So people with DID, oftentimes the disassociating, being guided would help. It's kind of hard with psych dogs because everybody is different psychiatric wise. If you have self-harming tendencies during panic attacks, if you need other people during panic attacks, medication retrieval, if you have medication to calm you down. I have rescue medication when I get into meltdown mode. But me personally, when I'm in meltdown mode, Denali's to go get someone else. If I'm genuinely in top tier, I'm having a genuine meltdown, he is to not, I don't want him to try to help me if I'm in genuine meltdown mode. Now, before I get to that point, yes, he nudges my hands, gets me to stop picking and scratching at myself, hitting myself, banging my head, those kinds of things to stop me from doing that. But there comes a point when I'm so into the meltdown that there is nothing that he can do, and he's to go get someone else. I need somebody, a physical human being who knows what's going on, to restrain me and keep me from harming myself until I calm down. Anything that has to do with mobility, I highly suggest getting a dog that has been genetically tested, meaning you get a dog that's been bred to do what it does. And I definitely would suggest you need to have the dog cleared from a puppy, that they think that it would be a good candidate. Once it's 1.5 years old, get it cleared for mobility, and then Denali gets checked usually every six months to a year to do, I gotta put these back on. He gets cleared every 6 months to a year mobility wise. He gets checkups and workups done on all of his joints because it is a very physically demanding job. that, and I highly suggest going the minimum requirements. You can look them up. You can always look up minimum requirements, but I suggest going bigger is better. If you can get a dog that's a little bit higher than the requirement for your mobility needs, definitely go for it. But let me read some comments here. But it definitely, with back to like the psych topic, it definitely is different for every person, what they need the dog to do. Thank you. It's nice to see. But I will say, if you need a dog for medical alert reasons, such as diabetic alert, seizures, anything that would be genuinely life-threatening if it was missed, I do not suggest owner training at all. I suggest guided training, and I suggest getting a company dog. You need to take your dog to go do scent work with a professional. Because if it's genuinely one of those situations that, it would be medically dangerous, you want to make sure that that dog can do what it needs to do all day, every time that you need it. So I will say that for other types of service dogs. But then again, there are dogs who do natural alerts like Denali did. But his alerts were for cardiac. And those cardiac alerts, I don't want to say are easier because it's not always the truth, but you perspirate during those kinds of things. And it's a very physical response for cardiac alert. Whereas, the difference for seizures and, diabetes is literally just a difference in a slight change in a hormone. So I definitely would suggest getting them professionally trained or guided trained. That's exciting. Definitely any kind of cart pulling dog or heavy breed heavy breed like working dog usually is what works best mobility wise for most people. But that's not the only option. Obviously, you can have any breed of dog, but it kind of depends. I'm always going to suggest doing guided training for obedience. I think every service dog should have some basic level of obedience training. It's readily available. You can get it pretty much anywhere. Denali got his through a private trainer out of PetSmart. All of his stuff was done there, and then he did his CGCs. So I personally think that every dog who's doing service dog work should have some kind of, basic obedience training on record. Yeah, it kind of just depends person to person for PTSD. Some people have, bouts of anger and lash out at people, and then other people are much more sunken in or quiet. I can be either or. I have bipolar 2, so I suffer from hypomania and major depressive episodes. So it can be either or, which bipolar in unison with PTSD is what causes my meltdowns. Bye-bye. I don't know what my neighbors are doing, but I can hear them down here. But yeah, it just kind of depends person to person. Definitely psych dog wise. Most of the time, yes. I will say there are times when he is off work when he's playing, that he is a little slow on the uptake. He doesn't miss an alert, but he's definitely not as fast to alert. But for the most part, he does fine in and out of work. He's always kind of been that way. He's definitely a super glue dog. He likes to be glued to the hip most of the time. I say as he is laying at the end of my bed. Denali. Hi, fuzzy boy. But yeah, he's always kind of been that way. Lord. There we go. I love having him as a Velcro dog, but at the same time, like, there are times that I just need some time alone, and it's really hard because he doesn't understand that. He just wants to be close to me, and I get that. If I could stop yawning, that would be great. Denali has successfully already ripped open this brand new canvas toy. Luckily, he's not one to, he doesn't like to pull the stuffing out and destroy stuff. He just makes holes in it. Kind of depends. I will forever be against brachycephalic breeds for service dog work. Most brachycephalic breeds shouldn't exist. That doesn't mean they're not good dogs, but genetically they shouldn't exist. Quality of life wise, they shouldn't exist. But as long as they are trained properly and, they are trained to the same standard, I don't have any issues with not commonly used service dog breeds. Brachycephalic breeds are dogs with push noses. So pugs, Boston Bulldogs, English Bulldogs, Frenchies, which some Frenchies can get away with it. But pugs, I definitely don't think pugs should be worked. Yeah, it's so hard for them to live in general, let alone to have to work, long hours, and most of them can't do scent work because of how their nose is. Some of them can't task because of how their body's built. So I don't agree with working brachycephalic breeds. That doesn't mean somebody with a brachycephalic breed who is a service dog isn't a service dog. It can still be a service dog. And it doesn't mean I'm going to bash somebody for having one. I don't think personally that they should be worked or that they should be service dogs. But that by no means means to, crap on somebody or make fun of somebody or do anything like that for them having a brachycephalic breed. That might have been the only choice that they had, or it might just what worked for them. Doberman are great dogs. I have a really good breeder that I grew up with, who offered me a Doberman. I was going to get one, and then Denali came along. So Denali almost didn't happen. I almost had a Dobie, but I had more experience with Germans. I have more of a soft spot for Germans, and that's what I wanted. So I got Denali. They're extremely prone to overheating, and a lot of them do have asthma. My cousin has also had several friends and cousin, and all of them have had asthma. I definitely would suggest with a Doberman, though, doing guided training, especially doing guided training for obedience, at least. You can do, task training on your own, but you need to go to do basic training. In my opinion, service dogs should at least be able to pass a CGC before they're considered, completely safe to be in public. You should be able to pass a CGC bare minimum. That's just a personal preference. Like I said, none of that is a law thing. None of that, is anything against anybody who doesn't do that. But in my opinion, your dog should be able to pass that as a bare minimum. Especially because CGC really isn't that difficult. CGC prep is basically doing what is going to be on the CGC. You can look it up and see exactly what's going to be on there. Same thing in the pamphlets. And go out to a pet store and do it. Train it. Do it over and over and over again until your dog can do it, until your dog can do it themselves and do it without being corrected. Same thing if you need to use a training tool before you do the CGC. If you need to train on a training tool and slowly work your way down to using a flat collar or get them desensitized to realizing that, they still have to listen on a flat. That's what I had to do with Denali because he worked mostly on a prong collar for most of the beginning part. And I had to get him to where he realized, it's the same thing. I still have to listen if I'm on a flat. So it definitely takes a lot of time and effort to do for most dogs. Denali was relatively easy because he's very eager to make me happy. He wants to do what makes me happy. It just kind of depends. I've never had any really serious public access issues. Most of the time, I just say the laws. I give them an ADA card, and it's not that big of a deal. But I also am very confident and set and confident in the things that I'm saying. So usually people don't argue with me. I will say it is all in how you approach the situation. Don't be an asshole. Be confident and give them the laws. Don't use any filler. Give them what the laws are. And I suggest having ADA cards or having the ADA hotline on your phone or something like that to give to them just in case those situations arise. That's usually what I suggest. Most of my public access issues stemmed from either having Denali naked or having him in very little gear. Gentle leaders are considered a training tool. I actually suggest going on Amazon and buying the bulk of them that are like $50. Just make sure that you're purchasing them not from a registry site. You can go on and see who the seller is, and I suggest taking that seller, type it into Google, and see if it comes up with a registry page, and if it does, don't buy from them. There are people who sell the bulk ADA cards on Amazon that are not for a registration site. I would say yes. Personally, I would say that Daisy would be considered a mobility assistance dog, even though she doesn't do physical mobility assistance. She's still doing mobility tasks, if that makes sense. Yeah, it definitely is dependent on where you live. I've noticed I have more issues in, excuse me, I have more like public access issues in Southern Ohio, but people leave him alone more in Southern Ohio. Whereas up here, it's like the opposite, where, I have people constantly screwing with him. um, it seems like up here, people constantly want to screw with him, and no one will do anything about fake service dogs. Um, that's personally what I've seen. Yeah, I would say that would be a mobility dog. Even though they aren't doing the physical mobility tasks, they're still performing a mobility task. Same thing, Denali doesn't do forward momentum pulling anymore, but he still does other mobility tasks, so he's still a mobility dog. People be blowing up my phone. What is happening? I posted to Facebook earlier about when I fell down the stairs and broke my pelvis, cracked my pelvis. That was an interesting experience. Extremely painful. And sitting hurt after that, because there's really nothing they can do for your pelvis other than you rest and sit a lot or lay a lot. But if anybody has any other questions or things that they think that would be beneficial for, how to get a service dog to talk about, now would be the time, because I'm probably going to get off of here and lay down and probably go to bed because I've worked all day. The hair color that I use really doesn't have a permanent blue. They have a semi-permanent blue. I don't work tomorrow, at least unless I get called in. This is Color Ion Brilliant Colors. This is actually much more vibrant than what it shows up on camera. Let me see if I can't get a... Maybe. I don't even know if it would show up decent. No. Camera's not going to pick it up. It's more vibrant than it is on camera, but that's what I have been using, and I use a 50-50 split of a semi-permanent color in my conditioner to help hold my color in my hair. So I use a pink conditioner. But I also suggest Beyond the Zone. Their color jams and their rock-on colors are really good quality. I really like their stuff. All right, well, It's nice talking to everybody. I hope this answered as many questions as possible, which if anybody has any more questions or anything like that, leave comments. Don't be afraid to message me or leave comments and ask. I can try to help make your hair blonde, but it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a process, and you're probably going to have slightly orange hair for a little bit. But yeah, if anybody has any other questions or anything like that, always feel free to ask. If I'm not comfortable talking about something, I'll tell you that I don't feel comfortable talking about it, but I'm pretty much an open book. I'll talk about pretty much anything as long as it's not hurting anybody else. It's okay. It happens. All right, well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take Denali for his last potty break, and curl up in bed and probably watch some YouTube or Netflix. So yeah, I will see you guys later.